Hello everybody, my name's Danny. Today I wanted to talk about another peeve of mine. It's not an important one, it's a very small one, but at the same time, it does kind of bug me. Though it's not important, it's one of those things that does interest me, and so it's one of those things that I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm interested, as you know, in mass transit. I'm a transit whore. I am also, therefore, a planning whore, a city/transit planning whore, and I also am a basic bitch geography nut. With that tends to come things that are gonna kind of be related interests. One of those things actually is in the size and height of skyscrapers around the world. As it turns out, my peeve comes out with, I swear everybody and their dead grandmother collectively agrees for some reason that you should include a spire or an antenna or both on the top of a skyscraper, a building, as part of the building. But it's never been a part of the building. It's in addition after you've completed the building itself, which is a completely different structure. You then bolt on these extra external structures that are their own independent ones on top of it. An antenna, lightning rod, a spire of some kind, whatever it is, it's a different structure entirely. You might actually incorporate it partially onto or into the building for structural integrity, but that doesn't make it part of the building structure. It's still a completely different structure. It's not the building itself, and therefore I can't stand it when people go and they include the total, when they do the final height, which is, everybody does this, even the official measurements do this. The final height of a building is measured with the antenna and or spire, lightning rod included, which irks me. Again, it probably shouldn't, but it does. It's something that I find very annoying because they are literally different things, and therefore I hate that people put them together. It's like they're not the same thing. There's a big difference. Fortunately, they don't measure the independent length of each of these spires and each of these rods and each of these antennae on top of these skyscrapers around the world. They don't measure them independently. And I wish they did, because if they did, I would make this video something where we go and we look at the actual building's height, not including the damn spires, antenna, or whatever else. And I guarantee to you, some of the world's tallest buildings are going to swap positions with each other because of it. There's a lot of these buildings that they gain their height taller than the next one, literally just off of these external additional structures on the top of the building structure itself. The antenna, the rod, the spire, whatever. And it would change a lot if you just did not include those. Or at least you measured them separately. You could still have your official measurements that way, but you still publicize the spire, the antenna, whatever measurements as well. That way you could actually, if you wanted to, like I would in this video, separate it immediately. And then you'd have a completely different tier list, because they would suddenly, a bunch of different buildings would swap positions with each other. Some would probably drop 2 or 3 positions from where they are right now because of the spires. The spires a lot of times can be upwards of 200, 300 feet themselves. They're ridiculously oversized, some of them. And usually it literally is because of the fact that they're trying to outdo the next building. Or there's another building in the world that's being developed, they want to try to steal one of the top 3 or top 5 titles from a pre-existing one. Yeah, this developer is developing this skyscraper in this country over here at the same time as that one. They want the title too. They want the position too. So what do? They keep going to war over this, and they keep saying, "Oh, well, you're gonna make it this way. Well, then we're gonna make it this much taller, even if it's a foot taller, because ego and pride issues, tiny dick syndrome." So they have to compensate. You know, the status is a huge thing, I guess, because technically around the world, people are like super interested in the biggest and tallest buildings, right? So that actually does make it is kind of, unfortunately, I think it's a sad thing, sad fact of reality, that it is a boon to these development firms at that point to be able to get those titles from each other. There is, New York City is actually the perfect example of this. Back in the early 1900s, when they were building the Empire State Building, and even when they were building the Chrysler Building, the developers at that period had grown envious of each other's buildings and each other's plans, and they wanted to outdo each other. They wanted to one-up each other. So what they would do is they would go and publicize only certain details and certain parts of their plans, but they wouldn't actually publicize everything, because of the fact that they, after the Chrysler Building, they realized that it was kind of not conducive to their plans to announce publicly how tall they were really going to make it. And so they wouldn't reveal everything to the public or even to the media or anything, because of the fact that then the other people would be able to sleuth and get it, the competing firms building buildings at the same time, who also wanted the title of the tallest building in the world at that point. And so they just wouldn't reveal it, because of the fact that they would hide their blueprints and they'd hide their planning, because they wanted to get the one up on each other. And then sometimes they would actually intentionally slow down or fake complete the building to its supposed final form, but it was actually a fake out, because then it would make the other one relax and comfortable and say, ha, well, we got you because we're actually this much taller. And then what in reality that would do is then suddenly the other firm would be like, well, actually, we fooled you, because that means we're going to build it this much taller than that. And then they just do that. Basically, they one up each other, and they keep it close to the chest like it's a fucking poker game, because it's like you don't want to reveal how tall you're actually going to make yours, because you want the other one to complete first, because that way then you know how tall theirs is, and then you can actually totally was in the original plans, by the way. Totally was, definitely, don't never question, and their original plans to be that much taller. And that started this like architectural building war when it came down to skyscrapers for titles. That's still ongoing, by the way, today. It's still going on. It's very, very relevant right now. In fact, actually, Saudi Arabia and the UAE are at war with each other in terms of architecture and building the tallest buildings in the world right now. And they're literally instilling and adopting the exact same tactic. I think there's somewhere else in the world that's also that's now in on that war, trying to take the title for the tallest building in the world, but they're doing the same thing, because now the all three firms are competing with each other in all three nations, therefore seeing it as a political boon if they could win it, and so they're all playing poker now with each other. And that really spurred from the early 1900s in New York City. Of all places, that's where it spurred from, when after the Chrysler Building was built. At that point, it became the Empire State Building. At that point, there's like 2 or 3 other major buildings within that same vicinity of New York City, of Manhattan, that was being built, that were all trying to be the tallest, which is how we ended up getting to where we are today. And that's actually where originally like spires actually became a big thing. And so I wouldn't doubt if that was when in time they decided they needed to start including that officially in a skyscraper's total height measurements, is including their spires. Because they're, again, spire, antenna, lightning rod, whatever the heck you want to call it, whatever the heck they branded it as, or it was supposed to be and function as, that's what they would do. And I wouldn't doubt that that's the time period, and that's therefore the results of why. Now, whoever the aficionados are, the people that the world looks to for these official measurements, the official reports, which I don't even know who the hell these people are, I wouldn't doubt that that's where that comes from, is that originated back then. And so those architectural firms and their wars actually probably ended up causing them to officially count these external structures on the top of the buildings to be part of the building height, because that would aid and abet their warring for the title, because that was something that they would do back then. And it was actually literally because of the architectural firm behind the Empire State Building, who then suddenly built the observation deck and the spire after the other building next to it completed, one of the competing buildings. And they're like, ha, well, actually, we had this in our plans all along. And actually, I think the Empire State Building did, but they didn't. I don't think they had the spire. I'm pretty sure the spire was the last second addition that they claimed was part of their plan, but they knew it wasn't because of the blueprints. And they added that too, just to one-up the other people and say, ha, screw you, I have a more of a struggle than you do with my tiny dick syndrome. So I need to compensate more than you do. And therefore, that's why I think that's probably happened. So that's why like spires became so huge at that point, no pun intended, because of the fact that there was a way to last second one-up the other person. If you actually completed your building and you didn't have something in your blueprints, but they now finished their building, it was taller than yours was currently, you could just add that extra addition and demand it should be, considered a part of your building's total height. So I wouldn't doubt that's where that came from. I still think it's BS though. If we could get somebody out there, because I'm sure there's somewhere out there you would actually be able to find the information of the exact measurements of these additions on the top of the buildings, the spires, the lightning rods, the antenna, to be able to then identify exactly how tall they are, and thus how tall the actual building is. And if some people or somebody out there would be willing to actually go for that and do that, so that we could have a database now our list and information of these different things, then we could actually see the real heights of each of the world's tallest buildings. That, I think, would be great. The Burj Khalifa would actually plummet on the list. It would no longer be the world's tallest. In fact, if I remember correctly, it's an obscenely tall spire. Like, it's a lot taller than you think it is. And if I remember correctly, it would plummet down to second or third place on the list, like, in the world's tallest buildings, because it's actually that big of a spire. It's dwarfed by what the building's footprint looks like, but it's actually a lot bigger than you think it is. It's ridiculous. I know One World Trade Center, I believe, if I remember correctly, that was one of the ones that would drop down a place or two on the list as well because of its spire. But I'm digressing at this point. So I just wanted to express my little peeve when it came down to that kind of thing, because I've been on a roll recently with making these videos about transit and planning and things like that, and this is a related topic, so I figured, what better time to bring it up than now? That said, though, I have been Danny, and you have been you. Maybe. I don't know. If you haven't checked recently, you probably should, because you might not be who you think you are anymore. You might not be you anymore. You might be I, or me, or it. That. Anyway, yeah, so, there you go. That's my perspective on it. Everyone, stay safe, see you later. Bye-bye.